Greetings, YouTube. When I was growing up, I watched a lot of television. As a kid, I watched a lot of kids type shows. I watched a lot of cartoons. I watched science fiction. I watched Disney. I loved it every Sunday night. That was Disney Light. I just loved that. I watched a lot of Creature Double Feature, and even as I got older, to like the martial arts stuff that showed after that. And that's was my beginning of my data junkie tradition. As I got older, I started watching lots and lots of documentaries and news and things like that. And I loved the launch of pay channels like HBO and like I was there for MTV. I can remember when MTV was only a few hours a day. I can remember that. And all the cartoons I watched when I was growing up, one of the ones that I have kind of a fond memory of was Mr. Magoo. And I found myself thinking about it the other day because when I walk away from this desk, I take these off. I don't need these anywhere else. These are my computer glasses. That's the only thing I use them for, is to use at the computer. Unless I'm using my Chromebook someplace else in the house, they stay here. So between here and wherever else I go, I got no glasses. And I was trying to look at something without my glasses on, and the font was way too small. Even on a phone like this, I couldn't really see it, which made me think of Mr. Magoo. And then I began to really think about Mr. Magoo, because I've really been trying to break down the media and the history that I have been raised on, to evaluate it and see, is it good? Is it okay? Or is it just another one of those things that I just kind of ignored because I could? I didn't have to think about it because of my particular position in the world. And it occurred to me that one of the things that we did with Mr. Magoo, actually a couple of things, is that we laughed at an old blind guy. We laughed at an old blind guy a lot. And just like there are Disney cartoons and there are Warner Brothers cartoons that are highly problematic, seen through the lens of the 21st century, Mr. Magoo is problematic. We were laughing at an old blind guy. And that isn't funny. Now, he was technically nearsighted, and if he actually had some glasses fitted on his face, he probably could have been able to see, but he didn't. So he was, for all intents and purposes, blind. And we were laughing at him because of his stubborn refusal to get glasses, and all of the shenanigans that he got himself into because of this situation. But there's something else going on there. Mr. Magoo got away with what he did because he was white and wealthy. Because if he'd been a short, black, poor dude, he wouldn't have got away with it. If he'd been a woman and poor, he wouldn't have got away with it. They would have just laughed it off. That would have been viewed as problematic. People would have been like, well, that's not funny. You know, that person should be taken care of. They should have done something about that. It's not proper that person's wandering around, causing problems like that. And that's what would have happened. But because he was a white, wealthy dude, it was okay for him to wander around and endanger the lives of other people on a regular basis. Like every single cartoon, he endangered the life of somebody. And we thought it was funny. Now, there are going to be those in the comments below. They're going to say, well, you liberals can't find anything funny. Yeah, we can, if it's funny. But taking in new knowledge and having that new knowledge change our worldview from that point forward is called learning. And I espouse that particular philosophy, that we learn from the past and the present to make a better future. We can't change the past. The past is a book. We can only learn from it. We can never change it. But we should be able to recognize when there are things from it that were a little screwed up. And Mr. Magoo is one of them. I was interested to find out that he started in 1949. I didn't realize he'd been been around for that long. But then again, a lot of the media I was absorbing at that time, Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons and Looney Tune cartoons, and even like the Tom and Jerry stuff and things like that, they came from that era as well, and I didn't think anything of it. My grandparents were from that era. My parents had been born in that era, so I was enmeshed in that era. And my father was love of old movies and old music, so I was very deeply enmeshed in that era. So I didn't really think about the fact that that maybe the references were a little older than I am, because that's what I was surrounded with. I just accepted it. But it's intriguing to know that he started in 1949 and won awards. Some of those cartoons won awards. But it's messed up to point at somebody and laugh at them because of a disability. Now, if a person who has bad sight wants to laugh at themselves, as I was making jokes about myself earlier in this very video about the fact that I couldn't see, that's fine. It's my sight. I can make cracks about it. If I want to make jokes about my hair, cool. My wife wants to crack jokes about it, or my friends, or my friend Amy wants to, in the comments below, wants to make a joke about my baldness. Fine. Amy and I are friends. It's okay if Amy does that. Some rando from the internet does? That's not so good. That person has no established relationship. They are just being a jerk. So to point and laugh at somebody because they're blind isn't cool. If Mr. Magoo himself would like to make jokes about his inability to see, fine, but that would take a level of self-awareness that would kind of eradicate the entire basis of the Mr. Magoo cartoon, because if he could admit his problem, he probably would have addressed it and would have the problem. But he didn't, because he wasn't willing to do that, because his own stubborn nature wouldn't let him. That's probably rolled into toxic masculinity, if you ask me, now that I think about it. There's a lot of layers in Mr. Magoo now that I ponder it, and we should be looking at those so we can learn from them. But when we were pointing and laughing at an old blind guy, that was messed up. It wasn't ever good. It wasn't ever acceptable. And we shouldn't have done it.